My name is Luciana Hawthorne, and I'm 31 years old. If you ask anyone in my family who the responsible one is, they'll point to me without thinking. The dependable daughter, the one who always has a plan, a backup plan, and a spreadsheet for both. Funny how none of that mattered the day I walked into my own living room and found strangers living in my house. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I serve in the Navy as a logistics officer. For the last 9 years, my life has been deployments, schedules, supply chains, and a carefully built career I'm proud of. I met my boyfriend, Ethan Cole, on my second deployment. He's a fellow officer with the kind of calm that makes storms feel like light rain. We've been together for 5 years now, and against the chaos of military life, we've built something steady. 3 years ago, we decided to plant roots. Between deployments, we were tired of bouncing between base housing and short-term rentals. We wanted somewhere that was ours, a place we could come home to, even if home was sometimes just a few months between orders. We found it near Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia, a modest 3-bedroom house on a quiet street. White siding, a small yard, a porch just big enough for 2 chairs and a mug of coffee each. To someone else, it might have looked ordinary. To us, it was the finish line after years of saving and saying no to vacations, new cars, and anything that didn't fit into the down payment fund. We signed the papers. We cried in the parking lot. We walked through the empty rooms and imagined holidays, family visits, maybe one day a nursery. I remember Ethan turning in a slow circle in the living room. "Can you believe it?" he said. "Our house. Ours." The word still means something very specific to me. Because of our deployments, we needed someone we trusted to check on the place. Pick up the mail, flush the toilets, make sure the pipes didn't freeze in winter. Normal things, predictable things. My mother, Brenda, seemed like the obvious choice. She was retired, lived about 40 minutes away in Chesapeake, and for most of my life, she'd been the person I could rely on. Not perfect. She had a soft spot for my younger sister that bordered on reckless, but she was still my mother. We gave her a spare key and very clear instructions. "Just the basics," I told her. "Mail once a week, check pipes, make sure everything's locked up." She patted my hand like I was overreacting. "Of course, sweetie. Don't worry about a thing. Just focus on your service. I'll take care of the house." If you listen closely to your own memories, sometimes you can hear the foreshadowing. The way someone's voice tightens a little, the way your stomach twists and you ignore it. I remember a flicker of unease, like a cloud passing over the sun, and I pushed it away. Because if you can't trust your own mother with a key, who can you trust? My sister Lauren is 4 years younger than me. She's always been the one who needed rescuing. Dropped out of college twice, hopped from job to job, married Brandon, who works in construction when he feels like it, and had 3 kids in rapid succession. Twin boys, Cooper and Hudson, and a little girl named Willow. They live in crisis mode, always behind on rent, always one flat tire away from disaster. Mom called it bad luck. I called it not planning and not listening. I helped when I could, birthdays, school clothes, the occasional grocery run, but I set boundaries, real ones. "I won't fund their lifestyle, Mom," I told her more than once. "They need to live within their means." And Mom would snap back, "Not everyone is as perfect as you, Luciana. You wouldn't understand her struggles." You'd think being the perfect one would finally buy you some respect. Turns out it mostly buys resentment. 8 months ago, Ethan and I got our deployment orders. 9 months at a naval base in Bahrain. The silver lining was that we'd be together. Same base, same region, same brutal heat and erratic sleep cycles, but together. We prepared the house like we were preparing for a storm, winterized the pipes, set up automatic bill payments, arranged for lawn care. And of course, confirmed with Mom. "Are you sure it's not too much?" I asked her on the phone. She laughed. "Luciana, checking a house once a week is hardly a burden. I'm happy to do it." For the first few months overseas, everything seemed normal. She'd text occasionally, "House looks good. Picked up the mail. Everything's secure." Short, simple, reassuring. Then, around December, the tone shifted. The text got shorter, vaguer. "Busy with holidays. All fine. House is good." I noticed. Ethan noticed too. "You think that's weird?" he asked one night, scrolling through my messages while we sat in the dim light of the base rec room. "A little," I admitted, "but it's Mom. She's probably just wrapped up with Lauren's kids and Christmas chaos." He hesitated. "Just, Promise me you'll listen to your gut if something feels off, okay? You remember what happened with Jenna. Jenna was his ex-girlfriend back when he was still enlisted and renting a small apartment off base. She'd borrowed his place while he was away for a short training, invited people over, treated it like her own, racked up damage on his deposit, and didn't see why he was upset. It was just sitting empty, she'd said. That sentence would come back to haunt me later. Our deployment got cut short by 3 weeks due to operational changes. We were thrilled. Exhausted, but thrilled. I texted Mom to tell her we'd be home earlier than expected. Back Tuesday afternoon instead of June. Can't wait to sleep in our own bed. 6 hours later, she replied with a single word. Okay. No welcome home. No, I'll pick you up. Nothing. A small, sharp chill slid down my spine. Ethan saw it in my face. That's not the reaction I'd expect, he murmured. Maybe she's busy, I said, forcing a smile. We'll laugh about it later. We landed on a Tuesday morning after nearly 24 hours of travel. My body felt like it had been put through a blender. Skin tight, eyes burning, bones vibrating. All I wanted was a shower, clean sheets, and the familiar creak of our own bedroom door. We got a ride from the base and pulled up to our street around 2 in the afternoon. The neighborhood looked exactly the same. Trimmed hedges, quiet sidewalks, the distant sound of a lawnmower. But our house. There were children's bikes on the front lawn, a plastic tricycle on its side, toys scattered across the porch, and a Honda Odyssey I didn't recognize parked in my spot. What the hell? Ethan said softly, voicing what exploded in my head. My pulse started to race. Maybe we'd come to the wrong house. Maybe someone was visiting. Maybe... Through the front window, I could see movement. People. In my house. Children's laughter floated from inside, high and carefree. My hand trembled slightly as I fit my key into the lock. It turned. The door opened. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Not the faint, closed-up scent of an empty house, but the dense, lived-in blend of food, detergent, and something sticky sweet. The second thing was the chaos. Our living room was unrecognizable. Our furniture had been shoved against the walls or disappeared entirely. In its place was a huge sectional couch I'd never seen before. Toys were everywhere. Trucks, dolls, building blocks scattered across the floor. The TV was on, blasting a cartoon. And sitting on that unfamiliar couch, barefoot, a sippy cup balanced on the armrest, was my sister. Lauren. She looked up, startled, as we stepped inside with our duffel bags still on our shoulders. Luciana, what are you doing here? For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. I blinked. What am I doing here? My voice came out too calm, too flat. This is my house. What are you doing here? Before she could answer, my mother walked out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. The color drained from her face the moment she saw us. Mom, I said, my throat tightening, why are there toys all over my living room? Oh, Luciana, you're home early. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I was going to tell you. Tell me what? My gaze swept the room, catching on the unfamiliar couch, the kids' shoes lined up by the door, a family photo of Lauren and Brandon on my bookshelf. Why is Lauren's furniture in my house? They needed a place to stay, Mom said quickly. You were overseas. It's not like you were using it. The words rang in my ears, eerily familiar. It was just sitting empty. My stomach dropped, hard and fast. This is my house, I said quietly. You had no right. Behind Mom, Brandon appeared at the top of the stairs, carrying little Willow on his hip. The twins came bounding out of what used to be our guest bedroom, now clearly their room. Cartoon bedding, posters, toys spilling everywhere. Ethan stepped closer to me, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. Luciana, Mom began, just let me explain. Explain? I turned to her slowly. You moved my sister's entire family into my home without my permission. You gave away my house like it was yours to offer. You think there's an explanation that makes that okay? Lauren crossed her arms, defense already rising in her eyes. Don't act like this is such a big deal. We've been taking care of the place. It's not like we trashed it. I glanced around at the stained carpet, the scuffed walls, the toys on every surface. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself when I spoke. Get out. Mom's eyes went wide. Luciana, be reasonable. Get out, I repeated, my voice shaking. All of you. Get out of my house right now. Brandon had the audacity to scoff. We can't just leave. We don't have anywhere to go. That's not my problem, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket with fingers that had stopped trembling. They felt carved from ice now. You're trespassing. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. You wouldn't call the cops on your own family, Lauren said, but the certainty in her voice was already cracking. I met her eyes, and for the first time in my life, I let her see it. The line she had crossed, and the part of me that would not bend anymore. Try me, I said. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low and controlled, the way it got in crisis situations. You have 1 hour to pack your things and vacate the premises. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property. The room went very, very quiet. And that was the moment I realized blood might be thicker than water, but it doesn't mean they won't drown you with it. The next hour felt like some twisted reality show, only there were no cameras, no producers to yell cut, no audience to vote anyone off the island. Just my family scrambling through my house like it was theirs, and me, standing in the ruins of my trust. Lauren bolted up the stairs, shouting for the twins to start packing their things. Brandon stomped past us toward the garage with Willow still perched on his hip, muttering under his breath about ungrateful people. Mom hovered, wringing the dish towel in her hands. Luciana, honey, please, just give them a few days, she begged. They're going to be out on the street. They've had months, I cut in. My voice was calmer now, icy where it had been shaking. How long have they been living here? Mom's eyes darted to the stairs, as if the answer might be hiding up there. We can talk about that later. How long, I repeated, each word like a drop of water in a silent room. She swallowed. Since October. I felt Ethan's hand brush my back in a silent, grounding touch. October. We'd left in September. So, I said slowly, they moved in less than a month after we deployed, and you didn't think that was something worth mentioning? You weren't here, Mom said, frustration creeping into her voice. The house was just sitting empty. Lauren and the kids were about to be evicted. What was I supposed to do? Let my grandchildren be homeless? You were supposed to respect my property and my boundaries, I snapped. You were supposed to ask. She flinched. You would have said no. Yes, I said. I would have, and that still wouldn't have made this okay. Upstairs, doors slammed, drawers yanked open. The twins' voices rose in confused protest. Why do we have to leave? Where are we going? Questions no 6-year-old should have to ask. Questions their parents should have thought about before treating my house like a backup plan. I took a slow breath, then another. Ethan leaned in, voice barely a whisper. Luciana, you don't have to stay here and watch this. We can wait outside. I'm not leaving my house, I said quietly. Not again. Not today. We moved into the kitchen to get out of the way. It was worse than the living room. Cabinet doors hung crooked. One was completely missing a hinge. A hairline crack ran across the countertop we'd once celebrated around with takeout the night we closed. Grease film clung to the stove like it had been building for months. This took good care of the place, I muttered. Ethan surveyed the damage with the practiced eye of someone used to assessing situations quickly. We're going to need to document all of this, he said. Photos, videos, before anything gets moved. I nodded, numb and buzzing at the same time. We will. Mom followed us into the kitchen like a shadow. You're overreacting, she insisted. Kids are messy, that's all. It's nothing a little cleaning can't... Mom, stop. I turned to her. You didn't just let them crash here for a weekend. You moved an entire family into my home for 7 months. You rearranged my furniture. You let them drill into my walls, stain my carpets, crack my countertops. It's just stuff, she snapped. You can fix stuff. You can't fix a family if you throw them out. Something inside me snapped at that. Maybe the family broke long before I told them to leave, I said. You just didn't notice, or you did and didn't care. Her face hardened. You're being cruel. Ethan stepped in before I could say something I might regret. Mrs. Hawthorne, he said evenly, we're not going to argue about this right now. The decision has been made. They need to leave. Her nostrils flared. You've turned her against us. I actually laughed, a short, humorless sound. No, Mom, you did that all by yourself. The next 45 minutes were a blur of boxes, garbage bags, and raised voices. The twins cried on and off. Willow clung to a stuffed rabbit, thumb in her mouth, eyes wide and confused. Lauren stomped around the house, making a show of slamming cabinets and muttering about how heartless I was. If we end up in a motel with the kids, that's on you, she hissed as she shoved clothes into a bag. If you end up in a motel, that's on you and Brandon, I replied. You knew the situation. You knew this wasn't your house. You gambled that I'd just roll over when I got back. She opened her mouth, then shut it, jaw tight. By the time the U-Haul, paid for by Mom, apparently, was loaded, the house looked like a storm had passed through twice. Mom lingered in the doorway, her purse already on her shoulder. eyes bright with unshed tears. I hope you're proud of yourself, Lauren said, balancing a box on her hip. You're putting children out on the street. You put your children in this position by not planning better, I said, voice steady. And Mom put all of us here by overstepping in the most extreme way possible. Don't you dare put this on me. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Brandon muttered something about lawyers and rights that even he didn't seem convinced by. They left. The minivan backed out of the driveway. The U-Haul rumbled after it. Mom's car was the last one to move. She didn't look back. Silence descended on the house like a thick blanket. Ethan exhaled slowly. You okay? He asked. I looked around at what used to be my sanctuary and now felt like a crime scene. No, I said honestly, but I will be. We spent the next several hours doing exactly what Ethan had said we needed to do, documenting everything, every stain, every crack, every broken hinge. I took photos of holes in the walls where they'd mounted a TV, of marker scribbles on the carpet in the hallway, of a dark, ominous stain by the pantry that I didn't investigate too closely. Our master bedroom had been converted into Lauren and Brandon's room. Our bed had been shoved into the guest room. Their dresser stood where my vanity had been. Their laundry basket sat overflowing in the corner. I lifted one of my grandmother's decorative vases from the floor and realized it was chipped. Luciana, Ethan said quietly from the closet, some of your boxes are open. I think they went through your stuff. My chest tightened. What's missing? We did a mental inventory as best we could through jet lag and adrenaline. One of our TVs. Some of Ethan's electronics. A few decorative pieces my grandmother had gifted us. I'd need more time to know for sure. By early evening, my phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at the screen. Are you going to answer? Ethan asked. Not yet, I said, letting it go to voicemail. She called again and again. On the fourth attempt, I picked up. You need to apologize to your sister, she said without preamble. No hello. No. Are you home safe? I actually had to pull the phone back and look at the screen, just to make sure I'd heard correctly. Excuse me, I said. You humiliated her, Mom continued. You threw her family out with nowhere to go, treated her like criminals. They were criminals, I cut in. They were illegally occupying my property, and you facilitated it. I was helping family. That's what family does. Family doesn't steal, I said. My voice was calm in a way that scared even me. You took the key I gave you for emergencies and maintenance, and you handed my house to someone else, like you owned it. You violated my trust in the worst way possible. It was just sitting there empty, she snapped. There it was, the sentence, the justification, the same logic that had once cost Ethan his deposit, only this time the stakes were higher. It doesn't matter if I'm in that house every day or once a year, I said. It's mine. The mortgage is in my name. The title is in my name. You don't get to decide how used it is before you claim it for someone else. If you don't forgive me, Mom said, voice trembling with anger, you're destroying this family. I didn't destroy anything, I answered. You did when you decided Lauren's poor planning mattered more than my rights and my boundaries. I hung up before she could say another word. The silence after that was almost louder than the argument. Ethan sat beside me on the edge of the bed, our bed, still stranded in the wrong room. We should talk to someone about this, he said finally. Legally, I mean. There's damage, stolen property, unauthorized occupancy. This isn't just a family spat. I know, I murmured, staring at the wall. My eyes burned, but no tears came. I felt wrung out, emptied. I never thought I'd be the person considering legal action against my own mother. He took my hand. You're not suing your mother because she forgot a birthday card, he said gently. You're talking about thousands of dollars and a violation of trust that could have ruined us financially. This is big. The next morning, after a restless night where every creak of the house felt unfamiliar, we started making calls. The police came first. A woman officer, Rodriguez, walked through the house with us, taking in the damage. So your mother had a key? She asked. Yes, I said, but only to check the house, not to move people in. She nodded slowly. I get why you're upset. Unfortunately, because she had a key, and this involves family, this leans more civil than criminal. You did the right thing documenting everything, though. So what does that mean? Ethan asked. It means, Officer Rodriguez said, you should talk to a lawyer. You likely have grounds to sue for damages, unauthorized occupancy, increased utilities, maybe even theft for the missing items, but that's something a civil attorney can walk you through. A lawyer, for my mother. The words sat in my stomach like lead. We found one that afternoon. recommended by a base contact who'd dealt with a rental dispute years back. Her name was Miriam Washington, and she specialized in property disputes. Sitting across from her at a polished conference table, I felt oddly like I was in a briefing again. Only this time, the mission was my life. Miriam flipped through the photos on my phone, the utility bills we'd pulled up, the mortgage documents. She was quiet for a long time. "This," she finally said, "is one of the clearest cases of unauthorized occupancy I've seen in a while. Even with the key, your mother exceeded the scope of permission you gave her." "So we can do something?" I asked. "Oh, absolutely," she said. "We can pursue compensation for the physical damage, increased utilities, lost use of your property, and the missing belongings. The fact that this involves your mother and sister makes it emotionally complicated, but legally, it's fairly straightforward." She slid a draft letter across the table toward me. "This is a demand letter," she explained. "We'll send it to your mother, your sister, and her husband. It outlines the damages and gives them an opportunity to pay before we proceed to court." I stared at the paper, at my own name printed there, at the list of charges totaling tens of thousands of dollars. "Luciana," Miriam said gently, "I know this is hard, but your mother treated your home like a resource she could reassign to her preferred child. If there are no consequences, what stops her, or anyone, from doing it again?" I thought about walking through my front door and seeing Lauren on that couch, about Mom saying, "It's not like you were using it." I picked up the pen. My hand trembled for a second, then I signed. In that moment, I understood something no one ever tells you about family. Sometimes the only way to stop being the responsible one they exploit is to finally hold them responsible too. The demand letter went out on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, my phone was lighting up like a wildfire. First Mom, then Lauren, then Brandon, whose voicemail was just him swearing at me between gasps like he'd jogged up a flight of stairs. I didn't answer any of them, not yet. Instead, Ethan and I focused on the estimate reports coming from contractors. Every time a new number arrived, my chest tightened. A cracked countertop, $200. Carpet replacement, $4,800. Patching and repainting walls, $2,300. Plumbing inspection, $350. Deep cleaning and sanitation, $900. Additional lawn restoration, $600. The total climbed past what I'd quietly hoped to find, past annoying, past unfortunate, straight into life-altering. 3 days later, Mom finally reached me at a moment when I wasn't fast enough to reject her call. Her voice exploded through the phone the second I picked up. "Suing your own mother? Are you insane?" I held the phone away from my ear. Ethan, sitting at the dining table repairing a cracked drawer handle, looked up with concern. "Mom, calm down." "I will not calm down. You are destroying this family over money." "It's not about money," I said sharply. "It's about the fact that you—" "Oh, don't start," she snapped. "Lauren is devastated. The children are traumatized. Do you care about anyone but yourself? Do you feel even a shred of guilt?" Something inside me went still, quiet. "Guilt?" I repeated. "For what? For protecting my property? For enforcing boundaries you trampled? For holding adults accountable for their choices? Mom, you didn't just cross a line. You tore it out of the ground, shredded it, and set it on fire." "I did what I had to do," she insisted. "Lauren was facing eviction. Her babies needed a roof over their heads." "A roof that you gave them," I said, "but that I had to pay for." She faltered for the first time. I figured you'd understand. You've always been so blessed. You have a good career, a good man, a good house. You can afford to share." "Mom," I said quietly, "sharing is something people ask for, not something they take." There was a long silence on the line. Then, softly, bitterly, she said, "If you go through with this lawsuit, Luciana, don't expect me to forgive you." I closed my eyes and realized something heartbreaking. She really believed she was the injured party. Ethan came to sit beside me when I hung up, gently taking the phone from my hands. "You okay?" "No," I whispered, "but I'm still doing the right thing." Miriam Washington moved quickly. Within 2 weeks, we had contractor estimates finalized, photographic documentation compiled, police report copies, and notarized statements from neighbors. Mrs. Thompson, our next-door neighbor, the one who'd nearly called the police multiple times, looked relieved when I visited her for a written statement. "My husband said I shouldn't get involved," she whispered, signing the paper anyway. "But you deserve to know what really happened." "What do you mean?" I asked. She hesitated. "There were parties, loud ones, people coming and going at all hours. The children ran wild in your yard. Lauren barely watched them. They broke your garden lights. I saw it with my own eyes. I swallowed hard. Did Mom visit often? Mrs. Thompson shook her head. Only occasionally, but when she came, she always looked overwhelmed. And Lauren always yelling at her. Honestly, dear, you should have been told months ago. Yes, I said softly, I should have. When the official lawsuit was filed, Mom's reaction was immediate and nuclear. I woke up one morning to 38 text messages from relatives across multiple states. How could you? Your mother is devastated. Money isn't everything. You've changed. I barely recognize you anymore. And the most hurtful one, Lauren told us you physically threatened the kids. What? I choked, showing Ethan the phone. He clenched his jaw. They're trying to spin a narrative. They're panicking. I called Uncle Dennis, the only relative I trusted implicitly. He'd always been the quiet observer in the family, the one who saw more than he let on. Luciana, he said the moment he answered, don't you dare let them guilt-trip you into backing down. So you heard. Oh, I heard, he sighed. Your mother called me crying. But listen, Brenda crossed a line so deep she might never find her way back. And Lauren, she's always taken advantage. This time she just had a bigger playground. I exhaled shakily. Thank you. Anytime, kiddo. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. His words felt like a warm coat wrapped around a shaking body. When the court date finally arrived, I expected to feel anxious, sick even. But instead, I felt a strange calm, like stepping into a storm you'd trained your whole life to face. The courtroom was small, neutral, unemotional. Mom sat at the defendant's table, pale and tight-lipped. She didn't meet my eyes. Lauren sat behind her, arms crossed, glaring at me with the kind of hatred that once would have broken me. Now, it barely scratched the surface. The judge reviewed the documentation. Photos of stains, holes, cracked counters, statements from neighbors, printouts of utilities, the police report. Mom tried at first to play the family sympathy card. I was just helping my daughter. I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. The house was sitting empty. But Miriam calmly dismantled each point. Permission to check a house, she said, her voice crisp, is not permission to transfer possession, and certainly not for 7 months. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Hawthorne, he said, your intentions may have been compassionate, but your actions were unlawful and caused significant financial harm. Lauren whispered furiously behind Mom. Brandon kept staring at the floor. When the verdict came, it landed like a stone dropped into a deep well. Judgment for the plaintiff. Brenda Hawthorne is ordered to pay $42,000 plus court fees. Mom gasped. Lauren burst into tears. Brandon cursed under his breath. Me? I just sat there. Not triumphant, not vindicated, just tired. So deeply tired. Mom paid, though it came from the savings she'd set aside for travel, retirement, and the hobbies she'd once loved. She had to sell some jewelry and dip into her emergency fund. She told everyone I had ruined her life. No mention of the months she had let Lauren's family live off my home like squatters. No mention of the damage. No mention of the stolen items, the skyrocketed utilities, the emotional toll. Just that I destroyed her financially. The extended family split into 2 groups. Those who believed Mom, and those who quietly unfriended me on social media, too cowardly to take a real position. Only Uncle Dennis reached out regularly. She's telling everyone she's the real victim, he said one night over the phone. I've tried to correct the story, but you know your mother. She cries, and suddenly facts don't matter. Yeah, I said softly. I know. The repairs began a week later. Contractors came daily. After the 6th visit, one of them shook his head. Lady, he said, this wasn't just normal wear and tear. Someone lived hard in this place. And something inside me twisted, because he was right. They had lived hard, lived chaotically, inside the home Ethan and I had built with careful planning, sacrifice, and dreams of a future they helped destroy. As the last contractor packed up his tools, I stood alone in the doorway, looking into the restored living room. Fresh paint, clean carpet, new hardware, a new beginning. Ethan came up behind me, sliding an arm around my waist. Looks like home again, he murmured. Yes, I whispered, but it doesn't feel the same. I didn't mean the house. I meant everything. Even after the contractors left and the house was spotless, restored, and technically whole, something inside me remained cracked. A thin fracture line running down the center of what used to be my sense of safety. The house was beautiful again, but I didn't feel at home. Not yet. Ethan noticed before I said a word. He always did. One evening, we sat on the freshly cleaned living room floor, eating takeout from the Vietnamese place down the street. I'd been staring at a blank spot on the wall for several minutes when he finally spoke. "Hey," he murmured, nudging my shoulder gently. "Where'd you go?" I blinked. "Sorry, just thinking." "Nightmares again?" he asked, voice soft. "Not exactly." I fiddled with a chopstick wrapper. "It's just, every time I hear a noise, I expect to see Lauren walking past the hallway, or the twins fighting, or Mom coming out of the kitchen." His gaze softened with an ache of his own. "Luciana, this is trauma. You don't get over something like that just because the paint is new." I exhaled shakily. "I know. I just never imagined feeling unsafe in my own house." Ethan wrapped his arm around me and pressed his forehead to mine. "We'll rebuild that too," he whispered, "not just the walls." And he meant it. We changed the locks the next morning. Every lock. Front door, back door, garage, side gate, even the windows. Not because anyone was likely to break in, but because my peace had become a project, not a guarantee. Then Ethan insisted we install a full security system. Cameras, motion sensors, phone alerts. I hesitated at first. "Isn't this a little much?" "No," he said gently. "It's exactly enough." And for the first time since returning, I slept through a night without jolting awake at a sound. But the emotional fallout didn't stop. 2 weeks after the court ruling, a birthday card arrived in the mail. A simple white envelope, no return address. Inside, a Hallmark card with gold foil lettering that said, "Thinking of you on your special day." No message, no apology, just a signature. "Love, Mom." I stared at it so long, Ethan thought I'd fallen asleep sitting up. "What is she trying to do?" I whispered. He took the card, studied it, then handed it back. "She's trying to pretend nothing happened. Or maybe she thinks this is enough because she doesn't actually want to acknowledge the damage." I folded the card once, twice, then dropped it into the trash. 1 month later, I got a Christmas card. Same lack of message, same empty gesture. I threw that one away too. Lauren, unsurprisingly, took a different approach. She emailed. A long, rambling message filled with typos, deflection, and enough emotional manipulation to power a soap opera. "Things have been really, really hard since the lawsuit. The kids don't sleep well. Brandon is stressed. We lost the apartment. We had to give up the dog. Mom is heartbroken. We're trying our best." Not once did she say the words I needed to see. "I'm sorry. We were wrong. We never should have moved into your house." And at the end, she wrote, "I know you're still angry, but we're family. Families forgive. Someday I hope you can remember that." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back one sentence. "Forgiveness requires accountability and genuine remorse. You've shown neither." She didn't respond. Therapy became my anchor. Dr. Andrews, calm, perceptive, and with a talent for cutting through emotional noise like a scalpel, helped me untangle guilt from grief, anger from clarity. "You set a boundary," she said during our second session, a very reasonable one. "I sued my mother," I said quietly. "You enforce consequences after a severe violation," she corrected. "That is not the same thing." "She says I destroyed the family," I whispered. Dr. Andrews tilted her head. "Did you? Or did you simply refuse to let your mother destroy you?" The question hit me like a physical force. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth was pulsing in my chest. 6 months later, we got new deployment orders. The panic hit before I could even get the sentence out. "Ethan, what if—" He pulled me into his arms before the fear could fully surface. "This time is different," he said softly. "We have cameras, security, a management company, and we're not giving anyone outside access. Not again." We hired a professional property management service, something we should have done from the beginning. They took over everything: inspections, yard care, mail, repairs, emergencies. And when we returned after 4 months, the house was exactly as we'd left it. Not a toy out of place, not a scuff on the wall, not a single unexpected car in the driveway. I remember standing in the doorway, trembling with relief. "It's okay," Ethan whispered, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "You're home. Your real home." For the first time, the house felt like ours again. Like it wasn't tainted, like the ghosts had finally left. One night, not long after, we sat on the couch, our couch, the one we'd bought to replace the one Lauren had dragged out, and talked about the future. About kids, about stability, about the kind of parents we wanted to be. "I don't ever want our children to wonder whose side we're on," Ethan said. "I don't want them to grow up thinking boundaries are optional. I want them to know they can trust us," I added quietly. He nodded, "and that we'll never prioritize someone else's chaos over their stability." His ex-girlfriend, Jenna, came up then, for the first time in years. He brought it up gently, almost as a confession. I let someone take advantage of me once, he said. Not the same scale as this, obviously, but that's how I learned what boundaries really mean and why they matter. I realized then how deeply this whole experience had shaped both of us, not just our relationship with family, but with ourselves. This wasn't just about a house. It was about who we were becoming and what we would never allow again. Even after everything settled, the repairs finished, the lawsuit closed, the panic of future deployments eased, one truth remained. Some betrayals echo long after the door has shut. I learned that in the quiet moments, the ones where no one was yelling, no one was crying, no one was defending their choices, just me and the hollow space inside my chest where trust once lived. But healing isn't loud, it isn't cinematic, it isn't a sudden sunrise where everything feels warm again. It's a slow rebuild, like a house after a storm, and sometimes the structure ends up stronger for what survived. One evening, months after our return, Ethan and I were sitting at the dining table sorting old photographs. The room was finally decorated the way I imagined when we first bought the house. Soft linens, warm lighting, framed art, plants spilling over shelves. A home. Our home. Ethan held up a photo from our very first day in the house, 3 years ago. We looked so young, smiling so freely. "Do you ever miss the feeling we had back then?" he asked. I thought about it. "The innocence of it?" I said. "Sometimes. But I don't miss being naive." He nodded slowly. "You've changed. In good ways." I gave him a soft, wry smile. Trauma will do that to a person. He reached across the table and took my hand, tracing circles on the back of it with his thumb. "Luciana, you survived something most people never face. Being betrayed by your mother?" He shook his head. "That doesn't just change how you see her, it changes how you see the world." His words broke something open in me. Not pain, recognition, the kind that feels like stepping into the truth instead of running from it. I didn't hear from Mom for nearly a year after the lawsuit. Not a text, not a call, just those 2 empty greeting cards. One for my birthday, one for Christmas, like a ghost tapping on a window. According to Uncle Dennis, she spent most family gatherings crying, retelling the story with herself as the tragic, misunderstood victim. "She still won't acknowledge what she actually did," he said once, his voice tight. "Not even privately." "Does she really believe she's the one who was wronged?" I asked. "Luciana. She spent her entire life rescuing Lauren. She doesn't know how to separate helping from enabling, or boundaries from betrayal, and I don't think she wants to learn." That was the moment I realized something that hurt, but also freed me. I didn't owe anyone reconciliation just because we shared DNA. Forgiveness is a door that both sides must walk through. And Mom was still standing on the other side, arms crossed, waiting for me to pretend nothing happened. I wasn't going to. Not ever. 6 months ago, Uncle Dennis called with an update. "Your mom told everyone you sued her for fun," he said with a snort. "Apparently you're cold and greedy now." I laughed. A real laugh, not the hollow one I used to manage when everything still stung. "Well," I said, "at least she's consistent." But later that night, lying in bed with the lights off, Ethan turned toward me. "Does it bother you?" he asked. "Not the way it used to," I admitted. "I can't control the story she tells herself, or the one she tells others. But I finally understand that it's not my job to correct her version of reality." "What is your job?" he asked, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "My job," I whispered, "is to protect my peace." And saying it out loud felt like breathing clean air. The most surprising part of the aftermath wasn't the silence from Mom, or the bitterness in Lauren's last email, or the distance from the cousins who believed the worst of me without asking. It was what grew in that silence. Growth, clarity, strength, the beginnings of something new. Ethan and I started talking seriously about the future, about marriage, about starting a family, about what kind of parents we wanted to be. "One thing's for sure," Ethan said one night as we lay on the couch beneath a soft blanket, the TV playing quietly. "We're going to raise kids who understand accountability. And boundaries," I added. He chuckled. "And that too." But I wasn't joking. "My kids," I said with conviction, "will grow up knowing that trust is something earned, respected, and protected, not something to be manipulated." "And they'll know their mother fought hard for that lesson," he murmured, pulling me closer. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I used to think," I whispered, "that forgiveness was mandatory, that being a good daughter meant accepting anything. But now I understand we can choose who we keep close." "And who we don't," he finished. "Sometimes at night, When the house is quiet and the security cameras show an empty porch, I think back to the moment I opened my front door and saw Lauren sitting on that ugly sectional, toys scattered everywhere. The shock, the violation, the bone-deep sense of betrayal. It all comes rushing back. And yet, there's something else now too. Something stronger. Resolve. I know who I am. I know what my boundaries are. I know what I won't allow again. So here's the question I leave you with. If your parent gave away your home, your sanctuary, to someone else without permission, and then blamed you for setting boundaries, would you ever be able to forgive them? Or are some betrayals simply too fundamental to come back from? For me, I've made my choice, and I'm finally at peace with it.